everyone. Welcome back to episode 92 of Talkoffamepod podcast with your host, Kylie Montigney. I'm so excited to have on our award-winning actor, producer, and podcast host, Kash Hovey. Thanks so much for
Hovey.
on, Kash.
Oh, sure, yeah. It's actually Hovey. Thank you.
Oh, Hovey. Sorry about that. And so you have like launched your own talk show on Air with Kash in 2021 on YouTube where you interview celebrities about their upcoming film and TV roles. How did you come up with the idea of starting on Air with Kash, and what do you hope people take away from the show?
I'd really gotten into podcasting the year or two prior. I was working with a lot of comedians, and a lot of them had their own podcasts and would interview their colleagues. So I've always been a real team player, and always doing. I love working with. I call my family basically. The people that I work with. So I like the concept of, us doing talk shows together, being in each other's movies. And then when the pandemic happened or started, we were stuck at home. So we started just doing interviews on Instagram lives with our colleagues to stay connected. And then I'd wanted to do some kind of talk show podcast. And then later that year, we started on Air with Kash.
That's amazing. Like, what do you hope like people take away from it, from on Air with Kash? Like, what do you hope like people kind of take away from the show?
Well, basically, I like to promote my friends and the projects that I'm involved with. Like I said, I'm all about my team. And at the same time, so basically, I like to have friends on and colleagues on, or even people that I don't know. It's really cool when someone reaches out and says, "Oh, we want to do your show." And, I learned something about them that I didn't know, and I admire their work. So it's a nice way to have a conversation. And then, especially if there's some sort of inspirational or insightful story that comes out of it. Recently we had a friend of mine, Beverly D'Angelo from the Vacation movies. She plays the mom. She came on, and she's someone who she's always been sweet, and she's one of the nicest people I know. And we'd had a lot of deep conversations as well. So, and even the day before we did our interview, we talked for about an hour, and I just let it go. She had so many fascinating stories. And then there was a lot of things just when she talked about, having being a mother later on in life after her career, and then really wanting to be a present parent for her kids, and having and I talked about just some things that I experienced going, like starting out in the industry as a young age. And some people were really receptive to that. So when we take on a topic or struggle that we've had, or something that we've been able to persevere through, and people connect with that, I think that's a win.
Yeah, 100%. Like that's the reason why like I started this whole podcast. I'm only 15 years old from a small town in Pennsylvania, so it's not normal for someone my age to do something like this. It was not normal. And obviously, like since I was like born, I always been fascinated by the entertainment industry and talking to so many famous people. And I lucky have been lucky enough to do that. But like how do you what kind of manage to like talk to all of these people on a podcast? Like, is there anything specific you like to talk about on the podcast, or anyone specific in the entertainment industry or any field?
Yeah, well, everyone's a little bit different. We've had musicians on. I actually just had an interview with a director this morning who I hadn't met before. And then we also have mainly acting, because for me, for whatever reason, I just grew up watching movies and TV, and I just understand movies for whatever reason. So I always knew I would be geared towards that. So when I have another actor on, or a director or something and well, I did grow up in the music industry to a degree. My dad was a music executive. So, and I love music as well. So anything in the arts, I'm really more geared towards. And, I think it's really just finding what connects. Like in Beverly's case, this is someone who I don't know what's cool with your generation, but definitely for someone my age, we all grew up watching. That's like a tradition, watching Christmas Vacation, and then she's done so many. Even the House Bunny, and there were all these other films. Powerful performances over the years. Like Beverly's work really inspired me, and so to have her, and I've known her for years, so it was just to have her on the show, that was like wow, like that was really a and same with Carrie Elwes. He was on, you probably know him from Stranger Things. He was the mayor, I think, in season 3, and he was Wesley in The Princess Bride, another one I've known for years. He had this movie with Brooke Shields coming out, and we were like, let's talk. So it's one of those things too, where with him, because actually when I met him, I was at a costume party when I was about your age, and there's a there was a Stanley Kubrick movie called Clockwork Orange, and that's what I was dressed as because I was really into Kubrick at the time. And he came up to me at this party and said, "Mate, that is an awesome costume." And I'm like, "Dude, you were my first costume." I mean, Princess Bride was like we were always recreating those scenes, so it's fun when you have those people on who you've grown up idolizing them or admiring their work, and then we can tell those stories on the show too.
Yeah, 100%. Like there's like when you are in like the journalism podcasting industry, like you like for some people, especially me, like I interview so many people, they're like when I interview someone I like, I'm like, oh my God, is this actually like happening? Like I interviewing someone I adore and been fans for years. Like, do you have like a moment or a favorite guest on the show that you would kind of like meant to you the most? Because I know you interviewed a lot of people like Beverly and all these people. So do you have like a favorite moment or like a guest?
Oh my God. I last I counted, we've had about over 100 episodes now. And I think those two stick out, but oh gosh, there's been a few other people where we have there's just a connection or someone who I just meet. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think. Well, even like we had a Brittany Underwood on, and it was actually that was funny about that one was because we'd worked on a few there was this one movie that we were both in, but we weren't in any scenes together, and our worlds kept crossing, and we kept appearing in each other's like Instagram feeds. Like we got to talk. So, and she's had a fantastic career as well. I mean, she started acting when she was very young, and then now she's producing and a filmmaker. So it's it's like someone asked me my favorite movie. It's such a tough question because there's so
Mhm.
many performances or so many stories, and it's funny, even there's movies that I loved when I was a kid and I'm just watching now, and it means something new to me as I'm older or whatever I'm going through
Mhm.
now. So that's what I love about art, and especially now that I have some of these conversations on the show, that I can look and even someone will play back something and I'm like, wow, yeah, I remember that conversation we had. It was really cool. We worked on that movie together.
Yeah, 100%. Like when like people ask like people like us, like who would interview like did you like or what is your favorite? I'm like, well, like that's hard, but like it's kind of like asking like who's your favorite child, I feel like. It's like
Exactly. Well, I mean, you've had such I mean, I checked you out, your page out. I mean, you've had some pretty substantial people. Do you have someone who really meant something to you?
oh, oh, that's really hard also. That's
Exactly. Yeah.
and so like I have to say like Madison Watkins or Caitlin Ways, like they I've been a fan of them for a while before I started the podcast or even had them on. So like I watched like Madison's a singer-songwriter and Caitlin's an actress. And I watched them and stuff before like I started this whole podcast, and like once I found out, like I reached out to them. I was like, hey, like, do you want to come on the podcast? And think nothing of it. Like I was like, oh, let's try. Like I doubt I'll get them on, but it's always worth a try. I received a message from both of them a couple days later. I'm like, they're like, yeah, sure. I remember being so starstruck. I was like, oh my God, this is not happening.
Yeah.
This is
Mhm.
like crazy. Like, did you ever have that moment, or you're like, oh my God, like you've been a fan of someone for so long that you're like, oh my God, this is can't be real. How am I going to interview them?
Oh yeah. Gosh, I was already well. I've definitely had that in life. I mean, with the interview, like even Beverly Carey or Brittany, or there's just so many people or even my childhood friend Mika Borum. She actually directed the movie that me and Brittany did. We had different shooting schedules, but it's yeah, I really every guest is special to that degree. I mean, I think I told you the Carrie story where it was just me being a kid, and I'm at a Halloween party, and he comes up to me and says, "I like your costume." I mean, to me that was like, oh my gosh, that was
Mhm.
I can't believe I got that compliment. And then to have him on the show, and he's someone who I always run into. He's always like invited me to his book signings, and we've stayed in touch over the years. So it was like that was really a special interview as well too. And I just try to think. Yeah, I've met. It's actually when I think I was your age too. I was about 15, and I was at this Grammy. My older cousin took me to some Grammy party, and I remember I got to meet Mark Wahlberg, and I was like so starstruck, and it was because I just started talking to him, and he actually pulled me aside and was just, hey, you know what? So what are you into? Like he really made time for me, and just was the nicest. He could have just said, or not like he wouldn't, but it was just, you're around people, it's like they just want to get to where they're going. But just the fact that I'm like 15 and I really was telling him how much his work meant to me, and he was really receptive. And then I met him again a few years later at I think it was the Guys' Choice Awards. He was presenting Burt Reynolds with an award because they'd both done Boogie Nights together, and it was at Sony Studios. Yeah, I think it was the Sony. Wait, Spike TV Guys' Choice Awards. It was just one of those chance meetings backstage, and he was nice as can be. I got a selfie that time, so that was cool.
Oh, I'm literally so jealous. Mark Wahlberg is like someone that like, I adore so much. I'm literally
Oh,
so
he's
jealous.
amazing. Great guy, great actor, so talented. Yeah.
Yeah, like I hear so many good stories about him, like people meeting him. I heard like he was such a nice guy to be with and such a good
Yes.
person to talk to.
And he's someone too who I think he, because he did have a rough upbringing, and he's someone who I feel like he really took his whatever he's going through, whether it was however he found his inspiration and he turned his life around. So I mean, he is an inspirational figure too, and I just think I just like where he comes from and what he tries to pursue in his work, his endeavors, and yeah, just being an all around great person as well as a very talented one as well.
Yeah, 100%. So you are like a celebrity ambassador for Heart Safe Neighborhood Foundation. What
Yes.
was something about the Heart Safe Neighborhood Foundation that made you want to be an ambassador for them?
Well, honestly, when I was 22, I was working out at the gym. I suffered a lethal arrhythmia, and I was out for just under, I remember just, I was doing sit-ups. There was a lot happening in my life at the time. I was graduating from college. My parents were going through a divorce, and there was just, and I was working full time. I was really taking on a lot. So I don't think I was really taking care of myself. And I was just overdoing it. So I'm in the gym, and I remember just feeling this, I had this pain in my back, and I was doing sit-ups, and then I remember this head rush, and then I was out. And then from what I was told later on was this angelic woman saw me go down, alerted to. So it just so happened that where I was about 10 feet away from me, there was a producer from ER True Stories who had just done a episode about defibrillators, bringing people back. And she was being trained by one of the only employees at 24 Hour Fitness who knew how to use the defibrillator that they just put in 6 weeks before. So, that was just really, I mean, I came back, I was gone just under a minute. No one can find the angelic person that saw me go down, but I met with the people who revived me numerous times afterwards. And you definitely, coming back from an experience like that, it just really made me like, you can't take life for granted. You can't take on so much, and you really have to just, as much. I mean, it was really, I felt like I was really going through a lot emotionally, and it's really finding those healthy outlets to get yourself on track. And so when Heart Safe came around, that's at that time, I think it was some kind of there was some event that they were there, and I just remember talking to the ambassadors there, like Donna, and that was really because I mean, just a defibrillator saved me, so I wanted to do what I can to get the message out there that they save lives, and I'm the proof.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like, did when you when that experience happened, like did you ever think like, oh my gosh, like I should like share my story and what happened, or do you ever think like, oh my gosh, like this is something I'd rather keep private than tell anyone?
Thank you for asking that. It's, now I'm very open about it, but at the time, because, I mean, I was 22, and I mean, this was like in the late 2000s. So I know I'm dating myself. I'm an older millennial. I'm not as cool as you Gen Z kids and everything, but yes, we had so this was, yeah, probably late 2000s, and social media hadn't come out with, and so I think there was a different, yeah, I think at the time I was really, and again too, because being young, I was like, I mean, it wasn't, I mean, I was very grateful for the opportunity, but I do have a defibrillator implanted. They put it under my pec muscle. So I mean, I don't know it's there, but I've had a couple surgeries, and I mean, it was scary at the time. I mean, I was just really, because again, just graduated from college, and I didn't know if that would, God, I mean, yeah, I mean, I just remember, I would have some anxieties. I was afraid of like, oh, if the defibrillator goes off, or, if I would have if it would happen again. And then as I got older, and then I think with social media and with, people sharing their stories and theirs, I feel like people are a lot more open. And I guess the point being is when I was younger, there was still a stigma about, mental health, or getting help for mental health. I mean, everyone did, but it was like, oh, there's just people weren't as nice, and I feel now people are more open, and I
Mhm.
really do commend your generation for being very open, and I really feel like just sharing our stories and getting our messages out there, and I think there's a lot more understanding in the world now. And so, yeah, definitely. It did take me a while to really be comfortable with it, or I was very selective about who I would share things like that with. But then now I'm in a place where, if I mean, I'm comfortable about it, and if my story can help someone out, then yeah, that's a win.
Yeah, that's literally how I am. When I was young, I grew up with anxiety and depression, and like I like had a rough patch back in 2020, and it was honestly the worst I ever went through. And I remember not telling anyone, like zero people besides my immediate family, and no one knew. And I was literally, and after I got done, like after I kind of got like back to myself, I was like, I'm not telling anybody. Like this is something like I'm not comfortable because I felt like I was going to get judged and feel all these things from so many people. Then when I started this podcast, I'm like, oh my gosh, I should really like talk about it because obviously like a lot of people deal with anxiety and depression. I'm not the only one, which I back at that time I literally thought I was, but now I think about it, I'm like I'm not alone, and it can really help so many people like you and so many other people that can share their story and help so many other people.
No, and I commend you for being open about I think depression is something we all go through, and I think sometimes just certain people are better at handling it. I mean, because there's people that I grew up with and think, oh, they have it so together, and we've had discussions as adults, and I had no idea what they were going through, and so it's interesting when you have those kinds of stories. And again, like I said, I do admire your generation for being as open as you are. And I know I think too, because your generation, I mean, you've grown up with social media. I mean, I can still remember a time before social media. So I mean, I remember when social media was starting, and it was like a way to reconnect with friends that we hadn't seen in a long time. And then it was like, oh, hey, let's get back together, let's have like a reunion party. And then as it progressed in the 2000s, which I'm guessing when you came up, basically social media has been the norm. So for us, like when I was your age, I didn't have like not every, and actually this came up with, oh gosh, there were two filmmakers who did this movie, Generation Rex. They're a little bit older than you, they're Gen Zers, but they did this, a 90s movie that their dad produced. And yeah, they're in their early 20s, and we were talking about how this younger generation, they basically grown up with social media. So when I was a kid and would get bullied, it's like it would end at school. But nowadays, I think your generation or going for who's been brought up on social media, I've heard stories where it doesn't stop, and you could be at home and like something people are bullying online or what have you. So I think there is a lot more that your generation does have to deal with that mine doesn't. And I
Mhm.
commend you again for being open about that, and you're really sharing your stories. I think that helps, and it's making the world a better place.
Thank you so much. So you had your breakthrough performance was the lead in the feature film Jack and a Cocaine, I think that it was called. And
Jack
so
and
like
cocaine, yeah.
yeah, that came out in 2014, which you produced as well, and had a
Yes.
theatrical performance at the Valley Film Festival. Can you tell us more kind of about the film and the role itself?
Definitely. Yeah. Well, that was actually, I had just finished this movie, Undateable John, that I was working with Joan Jett's company, and my manager had written Undateable John. And that was, I mean, it was one of those things. She wrote it. Then there was like Tom Arnold got attached, Daryl Hannah, and then she wrote this part for me. And I found out the day that I was on set that Shannon Doherty was playing opposite of me. I'm like, oh my goodness, I grew up watching 90210 and Charms. So that was the cool thing. And then when we wrapped that movie, Cynthia had the writer, manager, producer, she had the script. So, I wrote this role for you. What do you think? And so we went right into it. I think, yeah, because we wrapped Undateable John, I think in like December of, and really we started off the new year. It was a while back. And then we, what happened? Oh, yeah, it was just a cool journey. I mean, I read it and I totally got it. So basically, Jack is a guy who he came from you learn more about his backstory, but when you meet him, he's on the street and he's struggling with drug addiction, but he came from a privileged family. But there was this family secret that he was in the dark about that always haunted him because of his upbringing. So when you see him, he meets this another girl, Christy Cocaine, and they're both having they both resorted to street life, and when they meet each other, they go on a journey to get their lives together, and then they find out more about their paths and why they met. So it was that was a special project because it was really us. It was a limited crew. I didn't know where we were filming half the time, and we would just go I mean, it was like really what you hear about with those I guess in the 70s, like those guerrilla filmmaking, or when you hear about making Rocky, where they were just like kind of on a car and they were interacting with real people on the streets. So there was yeah, there was some, actually I bumped into someone I know and we just kind of like worked something in right spur of the moment. So it was yeah, it was a fun journey. And then we released it on Vimeo. We got us, and that was right when I was starting to understand like social media as a marketing tool, and people were catching on with that. So, and then it took about, I think 3 years later, the Valley Film Fest wanted to screen it. So I felt like we got a proper premiere and a celebration for that. So, and then my mom, Michelle Bouilleur, who produces my show, she was really instrumental in making that happen. So again, it was like one of those things, like family celebration.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you got to win Best Supporting Actor for As in Kevin. Did you kind of
Yeah.
ever kind of expect to win an award for that like role or get like recognition for the role?
I was that was a very fun project to work on. It surprised me when I got that. Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, anytime I won an award, I was like, "Oh, really? I won for that?" Or that was the start of something. But yeah, As in Kevin, it's I don't know if it's a comedy about Tinder dating, and it was but Summer Moore wrote and directed it, so it's just her perspective of what it was like with. And I think Tinder was relatively new at the time, so I'm the guy at the office who's just he was a wild character to play, but I just remember there was a few times, like, even because he's like this he's this guy who has a problem and he's always on Tinder. But I just remember like the first take, I kind of come in, I'm like, "What's up, ladies?" And I did it like full on just Jim Carrey, the masks. Like I was like channeling that energy, and there was like, it's funny when like some of the crew started laughing, and then we had to like do it again. So it was like, okay, we're onto something here. So that was a moment for me as an actor, and then to get an award for something like that was cool.
Yeah, that's really funny. Like, did you like feel like Jim Carrey in the moment? Like, really
Oh
into
god,
Jim Carrey?
I mean, especially for that role, because it's so over the top. I mean, Van was like, he was a fun character to play, not a guy that I think anyone really wants to know. But he's that guy at the office who thinks he's the coolest guy and thinks he can go out with anyone. So it's like I totally got it, because we've seen a lot of those characters in the movies. So for that character and being a comedy, I was just, and I grew up watching Jim Carrey's movies. It was just kind of like that's what I was channeling. Just, hey, what's up? And yeah, here, this is how you Tinder, and oh, I'm gonna go on a date tonight. And it was just, yeah, it was all those funny lines, but doing it in that very animated way, because it was for Funny or we ended up, yeah, it was on Funny or Die. And then I think it's still on YouTube now. But yeah, and then when we got into some of those festivals and started winning awards, I'm like, okay, that was cool, and I was really happy for the team on that one.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like when you are usually auditioning for a role, like how do you kind of get into like the mindset of the character you're portraying?
Wow, there was gosh, there's well, like for Jack and Cocaine, like I said, he's dealing with addiction and depression. So I mean, that was a thing too. I mean, I was like, there's a scene where I'm going through a like a panic attack withdrawal, and I had to be I think I lost about 20 pounds, like in a healthy way. It was just to physically, I mean, I was already skinny at the time. It was before I really started working out. But it was just, there was this scene where my character's having a freak out, but that was like literally me. And I had just eaten like a banana and had a cup of coffee, and we knocked out like 12 scenes that day. So I feel like I was using, I wouldn't recommend that for everything, but in that instance, I feel like I was using whatever I was happening in that moment, and it added to the performance. But yeah, I think it was, and that it was just channeling some painful memories so that I could cry. And then when and then like with Van, that's like a character where, like I said, you channel like whether it's comics that I've watched. And then there was another I, I guess it really depends on the character, and I try to come up with a backstory and what this person's going through and what this person's motivation is. And I do, as someone who's watched movies, I think my generation, your generation, there's
Mhm.
been so many examples on, and even the generation above. I remember just there were certain actors that I would watch, like, oh, they're channeling De Niro, or they're trying to do this. So I feel like there's so many examples where I was like, okay, we've always had these reference points. We're channeling a bit of our heroes in our work.
Yeah, 100%. Like sometimes like what I think most people that are in like kind of our generation, like when they're acting, they usually use someone like kind of like Jim Carrey for reference in their character. He's obviously we all grew up with Jim Carrey. He's obviously
Yes,
like he's been around for a long time. So obviously everyone basically knows who Jim Carrey is. And so
exactly.
obviously, like there's so many actors that we can connect to, but Jim Carrey is like specifically like the number one guy if you want to get into comedy. That's
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
And so,
So,
like, the final question I have for you is, what is some advice for people that like to come in the entertainment industry, like one day, or just really like to become like a podcast host?
oh, I always say, just believe in yourself and do what you're passionate about. I mean, I've failed more than I've had wins. I mean, it's and then you're always auditioning, you're always being selected for stuff, and you're always. I feel too, even because you're always needing to be selected by somebody, and you're always like, oh, what do they need, and how do I give them what they want, or how do I deliver this character right? So I feel like the podcasting really gave me that freedom to be more me, even though I love acting and I love movies. So yeah, I just think like but I will say that most times when I fail, it's when I'm not being true to myself. So if even if it's a character that I'm not 100% invested in, or if there's just yeah, I mean, I think we know, or we can feel it. We were just talking the other day about with someone about just even auditioning. Like I've laid down 50 different takes for an audition, but it's like when you're sending in the right one where I can fudge up a line and be like, oh, okay, I've got it. I rushed that one. So, and I can be a perfectionist sometimes. So it's yeah, I just really just believe in yourself. And I think a lot of times, I mean, because I grew up in the industry young, and I didn't always, and it was, again, this was like in the 2000s, so we didn't really have social media. There's just so much access now. I mean, really take advantage of every, like, even just you like starting your show right now. I mean, this is awesome. And the fact that you're doing this and you've already interviewed some great people that are some of your heroes. It's just stay busy, stay active. You have so many resources now. I mean, just I get jealous sometimes with all the technology that's available, the stuff that I wanted to do when I was your age. And I'm like, if only I had like, this camera. Now it's like we all have cameras on our phones, or I mean, we were still making movies, but they weren't as good, or we didn't have the technology. But I think every generation says that. But yeah, just, have fun with it, believe in yourself, and really, and who you surround yourself with too. Because I mean, I've definitely, and that's just part of life. Sometimes to be honest, I mean, every film project I've been on, I've got to say, I've really had a relatively great time with the cast and crew. But other times, just it's LA, and I mean, where I'm at in Hollywood, I did have to navigate certain things on my own, and sometimes things didn't always work out for the best. But I feel like I learned from those mistakes. So it's really you have to have good people around you and support system, and really pay attention to those signs. Like if you're in an environment that it doesn't feel right, go with your instinct on that and stick to what inspires you and makes you feel right.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree in that. And so thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was such a great time to chat with you. I seriously love chatting with you and having a chance to speak with you. Like, where can people find you on social media if they want to like connect with you or anything?
Absolutely. Well, I'm on Instagram. My name is Kash, Kash, and my last name is Hovey, Hovey. I'm on Instagram. We also have my show is On Air with Kash, with a K, and that's on YouTube as well too. You can check out our interviews. Yeah, I think we have a film festival coming up in November, so we'll be doing a lot of promotion on that. And yeah, I'm always down to collaborate with cool new people. And again, I thank you for having me on your show. And I did notice you mentioned something. So you're in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, in Pennsylvania.
And I did, because I noticed you're a Dodgers fan.
Yeah, I'm a Dodgers
Yeah,
fan. I'm from Pennsylvania. So
that's
no,
cool. Hey,
very
I'm
rare.
cool, because when you said that, I'm like, oh, okay, because at first I'm like, okay, LA or whatever, but no, that's cool. So yeah, you're representing my town and everything. I still need to get to a Dodger game. So yeah,
Yeah,
go Blue.
me too. I need to get one ASAP because like I haven't been to a game in so long. I
Yeah.
miss it.
I did at one point, I forgot where I got it from, but I had a blue Phillies hat. I think when I was a kid, my cousin was an announcer, but I did have a Phillies hat at one point in
Oh,
time too.
really? Like my
Yeah,
family's
yeah.
huge Phillies fans. So like
Okay.
obviously,
So how do they feel
me
about you
being a
being a
Dodger
Dodgers
fan and my
fan?
Phillies fans, it didn't turn out well, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah. So are they accepting that you're a Dodgers fan, or
Yeah,
it's like, hey,
now they do,
no,
but
okay,
back then they didn't.
I understand. That's cool.
All right, so thank you so much for coming on again, and it was great chatting. We'll definitely speak soon for sure. Thank you so much.
Definitely. Hey, keep rocking. I wish you all the best, and yeah, keep it up. You're doing great.
You too. Send to you as well. Talk to you soon.
Okay.